relatives wailing. He later told me how overwhelmed he felt and didn't know what to do. So he took out his phone, like any one of us might, and snapped that picture and tweeted it out. And voila. That picture went viral and broke the censorship and forced mass media to cover it. So when a year later, Turkey's Gezi protests happened, started as a protest about a park being razed, but became anti-authoritarian protests. It wasn't surprising that media also censored it, but it got a little ridiculous at times. When things were so intense, when CNN International was broadcasting live from Istanbul, CNN Turkey instead was broadcasting a documentary on penguins. Now, I love penguin documentaries, but that wasn't the news of the day. An angry viewer put his two screens together and snapped that picture, and that one too went viral. And since then, people call Turkish media the penguin media. But this time, people knew what to do. They just took out their phones and looked for actual news. Better, they knew to go to the park and take pictures and participate and share it more on social media. Digital connectivity was used for everything, from food to donations to, everything was organized partially with the help of these new technologies. And using internet to mobilize and publicize protests actually goes back a long way. Remember the Zapatistas, the peasant uprising in the southern Chiapas region of Mexico, led by the masked, pipe-smoking, charismatic Subcomandante Marcos? That was probably the first movement that got global attention thanks to the internet. Or consider Seattle '99, when a multinational grassroots effort brought global attention to what was then an obscure organization, World Trade Organization, by also utilizing these digital technologies to help them organize. And more recently, movement after movement has shaken country after country. The Arab uprisings from Bahrain to Tunisia to Egypt and more. Indignados in Spain, Italy, Greece, the Gezi Park protests, Taiwan, Euromaidan in Ukraine, Hong Kong. And think of more recent initiatives like the Bring Back Our Girls hashtags. Nowadays, a network of tweets can unleash a global awareness campaign. A Facebook page can become the hub of a massive mobilization. Amazing. But think of the movements I just mentioned. The achievements they were able to have, their outcomes, are not really proportional to the size and energy they inspired. The hopes they rightfully raised are not really matched by what they were able to have as a result in the end. This raises a question. As digital technology makes things easier for movements, why haven't successful outcomes become more likely as well? In embracing digital platforms for activism and politics, are we overlooking some of the benefits of doing things the hard way? And I believe so. I believe that the rule of thumb is easier to mobilize does not always mean easier to achieve gains. Now, to be clear, technology does empower in multiple ways. It's very powerful. In Turkey, I watched 4 young college students organize a countrywide citizen journalism network called 140 Journos that became the central hub for uncensored news in the country. In Egypt, I saw another 4 young people use digital connectivity to organize the supplies and logistics for 10 field hospitals, very large operations, during massive clashes near Tahrir Square in 2011. And I asked the founder of this effort, called Tahrir Supplies, how long it took him to go from when he had the idea to when he got started. 5 minutes, he said. 5 minutes. And he had no training or background in logistics. Or think of the Occupy movement, which rocked the world in 2011. It started with a single email from a magazine, Outbusters, to 90,000 subscribers in its list. About 2 months after that first email, there were, in the United States, 600 ongoing occupations and protests. Less than one month after the first physical occupation in Zuccotti Park, a global protest was held in about 82 countries, 950 cities. It was one of the largest global protests ever organized. Now compare that to what the civil rights movement had to do in 1955, Alabama, to protest the racially segregated bus system, which they wanted to boycott. They'd been preparing for many years and decided it was time to swing into action after Rosa Parks was arrested. But how do you get the word out? Tomorrow we're going to start the boycott when you don't have Facebook, texting, Twitter, none of that. So they had to mimeograph 52,000 leaflets by sneaking into a university duplicating room and working all night, secretly. They then used the 68 African American organizations that crisscrossed the city to distribute those leaflets by hand. And the logistical tasks were daunting because these were poor people. They had to get to work, boycott or no. So a massive carpool was organized. Again, by meeting. No texting, no Twitter, no Facebook. They had to meet almost all the time to keep this carpool going. Today, it would be so much easier. We could, create a database, available rides, and what rides you need.